because our deepest wounds often reveal our greatest purpose. Welcome to the Court of Connection. I have my friend Shel Dockser here today. I'm so excited to have you on the show. I met Shel at Bridge and Extreme this past 2 weekends. We did a very challenging but inspiring and life-changing workshop back-to-back together. And there was something about Shel that stood out to me. She has this very grounding, piercing, beautiful leadership style about her. And I had the pleasure of being in one of your small groups. So welcome to the show. So glad to have you here and share you with everyone.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Danielle.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I really appreciated your eagerness to step up and lead, and I really trusted you. I voted for you to be the team lead.
Yeah. So for people meeting you for the first time, how would you describe who you are and the world you move in? Because you're a Reiki master, you are a psychic medium, you are the president of Squirrel Friends ATX, you are a makeup artist, you're so many things. So tell us who you are. How do you describe yourself?
Yeah, so I'm a serial entrepreneur. I would categorize everything I do under the form of mentorship. I use my story to help usually women, but sometimes men, uncover who they really are so that they can become that person and have the things that that person has, whether it's a spouse or wealth or, purpose. And so whatever I'm doing to get them there, whether it's shifting their perspective through makeup or shifting their perspective through metaphors with clairvoyance, it's all leading to the same place, which is personal development. And so my mission is philanthropy with all of my projects. And I look to donate proceeds and profits and as well as volunteer.
Amazing. What a beautiful answer. You just embody that too. Without giving too much away about the experience we just had, we collectively came up with an organization that we wanted to raise money for. And Shel, because of her story and your passion and just your heart-centered motivation for this organization, sold us all. We were like, okay, yeah, we love this, let's do it. We felt your passion and your heart in that. So it just really, really speaks to who you are.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
I always say my mess is my mission and my message. And so when we had the opportunity to pick a nonprofit, I was jumping at the opportunity to give back to the type of human that gave to me. I'd love to share more about that if it's okay.
Please do. Yeah, I would love for you to share your story about that. I think it's so powerful.
So, real deep talk. I went through a period of homelessness and I was in psychosis and I did not know that. So I just did the obvious thing for an extraordinarily long amount of time and I called for help. And that looked like calling the police and getting different types of help, whether it was a good type of help or a bad type of help. I just kept trying to get someone to help me fix my situation, whether it was taking me to a domestic violence shelter or a homeless shelter or whatever it was. It just kept changing. And I just kept saying the same thing, what I thought was true. I thought I had been sex trafficked because I had sexual trauma, and that led to psychosis, which led to me experiencing the experience of being sex trafficked every day through psychosis. And so I got sent to a sex trafficking shelter called the Navarro Victim Center. And I get there and I tell them everything I think that's happened. And they were like, we think you're confused. We think you come from wealth. And we are going to find your family. And I remember in that moment shaking my hands and being like, oh my God, like this is crazy. I've been homeless for 3 months. I didn't know I come from wealth. And they ended up kind of tricking me into staying. Like they worked with what I believed happened. and kept me there and nurtured me, fed me, clothed me. And my peers were sex trafficking survivors and domestic violence survivors. And we rallied together. We cooked cookies together. We went to the dollar store together, and I didn't have any money. So I was completely dependent on other people's generosity, and they would do kind things for me, like buy me things, even when they had hardly any money themselves. Mm-hmm. And so this shelter saved my life. And I left the shelter, got out of psychosis because they found my family, and I got on medication. And I was like, I'm going to donate $1 million to this shelter. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, I have no idea how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to make sure this shelter helps more sex trafficking survivors and domestic violence survivors. That is my mission. That's why it's happened to me. I don't care if it's God's truth, it's my truth. And I'm going to make sure that people are taken care of, because people who have been through that level of trauma have more resiliency in their pinky finger than most people. Mm. And so I wanted to make sure those were the people who. And so we were getting the opportunity to speak up, and I was like, hey, like, what about this shelter? And almost everyone raised their hand in agreement. And so we ended up donating to the Magdalene House of ATX, which is a survivor-led therapeutic community for sex trafficking survivors. Not the place I went to. The place I went to isn't accepting donations right now for some reason, but we did it in proxy of the Navarro Victim Center. And my heart was full that the root would give to something that was so important and so meaningful and just changes the world. So thank you.
What a unique and beautiful story. You know, there was this story where you believed that this was your experience. Turns out it wasn't, yet you're surrounded by people who actually walked through this tragic experience and are some of the greatest, most big-hearted people you've ever met, you know, that are just an experience like that closes people, right? An experience like that shuts people's hearts off. And, you know, being someone in recovery, I've watched so many people have, you know, significant trauma and I've watched their heart close and never open again. And it's really, it's gut-wrenching to see, you know. The other thing that really stood out to me about this experience just shows us how much I'll speak for myself, how much I really haven't paid attention to those kinds of things, right? It's like out of sight, out of mind kind of energy. And this experience showed me that that's not who I want to be. I don't want to live in a bubble and pretend that these things aren't going on around me, right? I don't have to allow it to rule me. I don't have to allow it to harden my heart. But I can open my eyes and I can do what I can in big ways or small ways. And so thank you to Extreme Leadership, and thank you to you for playing such a large role in that piece for me. Because I've always been somebody who's like, I'm not watching the news. I got to protect my little, and I think there's value in some of that, right? I do think that there's an extreme side to both, right? Where people are so like obsessed with the news and, you know, all these things. And then there's I have to be honest with myself, then there's the extreme side of the other side. That's like, I'm good. Everything's good. I'm not letting that taint my, you know, my field. And so I'm in this part of my life where I'm learning how to live in that sweet spot of the middle.
Yeah, I think for me, it's a matter of intentionally looking for ways to help. I personally don't watch the news because I've been through so much and it reminds me of it and can make me feel like helpless and hopeless. So for me, I'm kind of like, what is my plan? Like, what is my plan to change this? And what is my mission? And Danielle, what I know about you is you've helped hundreds of people at least with sobriety. And I don't see you as someone who's had their head down. I see you as someone who's been in the heat of it and has been changing lives for a very long time and will continue to. Mm-hmm. So I just want to say that about you. I think that watching the news sometimes does good and sometimes it's just painful. So I get it.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that. And you're right. You're right. There, I've been doing it in my own way, in my own world. And I think this is just like how else can you bring your help outward, right? Expand that from, people in recovery, especially as a woman who is stepping into life coaching or embodiment we don't know what we're calling it yet, but it's something of that variety. I'm going to be expanding that world, right? Where it's not just limited to people who are recovering addicts and alcoholics. And so this experience has shown me that there's just so many more ways that we can help. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's get into the juice here. One of the things that stood out to me when I first met you is you said you had a TikTok. Now, this experience that we did really had us pushing ourselves beyond our edges, right? We were really put in these situations. And again, challenge by choice, do it or don't. But I knew coming in that I needed a breakthrough in life. I knew that I was on the edge of stepping into the woman that I knew I wanted to be, but there were these things kind of standing in the way, these old beliefs, these limiting beliefs. And so this experience just continued to build and build and build and have us step out into what would have been like a scary situation or uncomfortable situation. And on the other side of of each experiment, you're like, oh my God, like it really is the boogeyman in the closet. Like the mind is the problem. The mind tells me that I could not survive, doing something like that I'll be mortified, that I'll be, whatever. And so, you've already had practice in this world. You have a TikTok that is specific to putting yourself in situations to be rejected. So tell me about that. Tell us what led to that. What was the motivation for that? What that experience has been like.
Yeah. So to take it back a few steps, this all kind of started when I was around 16, and I was feeling very depressed in life and struggled with not wanting to be here. And so I was at Barnes and Noble, and there was this little cute journal, or I don't remember exactly what it was. It looked like a journal or like a postcard thing to flip through with like notes on it that said like 1,000 things to scare you every day. And so I started thinking to myself, without even buying this product, how can I scare myself every day? And that instantaneously made me want to live, because it set my soul on fire, and it gave me a rush. So it gave me those good feeling hormones without drugs and alcohol. And so I started off by noticing when I was afraid to do something, and noticing that the fear was that I was going to be rejected, because that's why I was making myself smaller. And so it started with raising my hand in class when I didn't know the answer, or asking someone out at the Subway place. And so that's kind of where it was birthed. And then I would tell people about it when they were feeling depressed, and they'd be like, wow, like, that's actually really helpful. And so going back to, I think it was October of this past year, I have been following someone on Instagram who does rejection therapy coaching. I think she does dating coaching now. Her name's Maureen, and I don't remember her last name, but she talks about all these success stories of how she puts herself in uncomfortable situations and she gets accepted. And I was like, you know what? Like, I need to level up, and I think I need to do one thing a day that scares me. I think I need to try and get rejected. And I think it's not just the mind, it's the human animal, it's the body that makes us feel like we have to conform, or we're going to be put on a stake and lit on fire like our ancestors were threatened to, or, whatever the threat was in the society of our ancestors. And so I think putting myself in the situation to walk up to the most attractive person in a coffee shop, I did that. And I was like, hey, I just want to know your name. And he's like, why? And my heart's racing. And I'm just like, because I think you're cute. He was, oh, I'm married. And I was like, okay. I laughed so hard. And he was like, I'm going to shake your hand. he shook my hand, and I was like, whoa, that's so cool. Like, he respects me for this. That's how I took it, was he respected my effort, especially as a woman doing that. And maybe he could relate to that because men do that a lot more than women. And maybe feel like women don't know what it's like. So maybe a woman doing that was kind of like, that's kind of cool that I got to reject her. So I always think of like, how am I helping the other person by getting them to reject me? Like, maybe it's because I'm a safe no. Like, I'm saying, you know, I honor your no. Or maybe it's because I'm inspiring them to ask someone else for something they want, like asking out someone they think is cute, or him asking his wife for something, or if his wife wasn't his wife, asking his girlfriend to marry him, if that were a different situation. And so I think seeing it from the lens of how do I inspire others is what gets me to do it, because it's really terrifying. And it's actually how I met my boyfriend. I went to a woman's circle and I was like, hey, who here has a son? I was like the youngest person there. And I got some hits, but then I was like, I'm going to take this further. I'm going to go on Facebook and be like, someone set me up. And my married friend set me up. And now I'm so happy. But it came from trying to embarrass myself, like trying to be like, what would make me feel weird? Like telling the world I'm single and I really want to be married. And I, this is where I'm at. I'm not happy with being single. And that was very vulnerable. So I post on TikTok the kind of shock value of my emotions as I'm doing the thing and after I do it. And it gets a lot of likes for a beginner account. I only have a little bit of followers, like less than 100, but I'll get like 100 likes on a video because the audacity of the video.
Yeah. Oh, that's so powerful. There's two things that stand out to me. The first thing is there's this teacher that I follow. I don't know if you know who he is. His name's Joe Hudson. The Art of Accomplishment is his work, and he's basically he's an emotions coach. Like that's how I see him. Is he really he empowers you to feel the emotion fully and shows you that it's actually the emotion that we're afraid of, not the thing, right?
Yeah.
So like going out and humiliating myself or like having this experience, I'm not really afraid of the act. I'm afraid of how I think it's going to make me feel, right? I'm going to feel like shit. I'm going to feel shame. I'm going to feel embarrassment, right? That's the thing that I'm actually avoiding, right? And so his teachings kind of show you that. And so something that I share often that stands out to me is, you know, if it's the emotion behind the thing that we're actually afraid of, what happens if we allow ourselves to fully feel the emotion, even if it's not happening, even if the thing's not coming to fruition, right? So, you know, he talks about how him and his wife, when they're having these huge arguments, the underlying fear for them is that the marriage is ending, right? And that they're going to have to mourn the marriage ending. And so this interesting thing that they've done in those moments is they go to their prospective places, they go to separate rooms, and they mourn the loss of the marriage. They fully lean into, oh my God, this is over. This is so heartbreaking. This is so sad. Feel it in their body, let it move. And then they come back together and they have the argument. And I just think that's so interesting. And it's so in line with what we learned this weekend is we are so, by you doing that, yes, it's beautiful to go out there and you know, step out of fear and have these experiences, and to even be thinking about like, I wonder how this influences or affects someone else, right? It gives them an opportunity to question their own experiences or, you know, whatever it is. But the biggest thing is, how am I going to hold myself through this experience? Am I capable? Do I have the capacity to hold myself through whatever comes of this, you know? And that's what was so profound about the venture we just took together this past month is I'm just always reminded in these spaces that we're all the same. Like, no matter what someone looks like, you create these stories based on what someone looks like, that things are easier for them, or at least for me, that's always been my thing. It's like, if you have a certain amount of money or you look a certain way, like conceptually, I understand that we're all human, but I really create that narrative sometimes that you don't have it as hard as I do, or you don't experience things the way that I do. And I'm always proven wrong in these spaces because we're a room of 50, 60 people from all walks of life, and we all have shit. We all have fear. We all have limiting beliefs that hold us back. And so I love that you're doing that. I think it's so inspiring. And it really, so many of us sit on the sideline of our life wanting to be doing something different, and watching people like you and watching people like me, right, leaving their 9-to-5s, stepping out on fear, trying something new, and thinking, I can't do that. But we're here to tell you that you fucking can. You're not any different than myself or Shel. And so I just really want to drive that message home. Like, anybody that's listening, you are just as capable as anyone that you're watching. There's nothing about them that is different than what's inside of you. So I felt really called to share that. Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Psycho-Cybernetics book. Have you read that, Danielle?
No, tell me about it.
So it talks about how, and I don't remember if it was our brain has a computer or is like a computer. I'm messing up that detail, but the part I want to bring up is thinking of the brain being similar to a computer and that you can program it to succeed. And it talks about how to use different tools to get the brain to be more successful. And it talks about instincts, like a squirrel doesn't need to be taught to gather nuts and hibernate. It just knows how to do it. Your brain knows how to do it as the computer, and it just needs to be worked with its natural functioning, with its natural instinct. And so when you're saying we're all alike and we have the same thing, we all have the success instinct, we all have the computer that we can program to get a certain output, and success leaves clues. It seems like luck until you follow someone's footsteps and it happens for you too. And sometimes I think it needs to be following many people's footsteps because it's abstract, it's not a straight line. But I think success leaves clues.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we all just come to the table with different, somatic programming, conditioning, beliefs, all of these things. And that's where the answer is, right? It's not external. That's the journey I've been on, is that I spent so much of my life, seeking externally resourcing, basically. And really, the answer is internal resourcing. But I have to understand what makes me tick. I have to understand what's standing in the way of me being able to step into the success that I want, right? What about success, scares you? I had to look at some old beliefs. This past year was definitely like a gestation period for me. It was, oh my God, it was like I was in a cauldron of just like stripping down, and, looking at a lot of limiting beliefs. Like, if you got $1 million tomorrow, would you be able to hold it? Like, what would come up in you if somebody was like, here you go? Would you feel like you didn't deserve it? Would you question why you're getting it? Would you feel like people were going to judge you? Would you feel like people would think, why her? Like, what is it, right? Is it, oh, I'm afraid I'm going to blow this? There's we all have limiting beliefs, and it's so important to understand. Sorry, let me put this. It's weird. It came through. we all have limiting beliefs, and it's so important to just lost my train of thought. To understand what we're working with, because if we don't, we'll never be able to get to that point of receivership in the way that we want.
Yeah. And to piggyback off of that, I think it's also knowing what is mine and what is the collective's. Like what comes with being a human being and is just like something that anyone can relate to versus my experiences adding up to this part of my operations, like this part of my system. I do not know why this earplug keeps falling out.
We're just out here raw, baby. Phones are dinging. Earphones are falling out. We're here for it.
We're showing up authentically, and
Right.
this is what humanness looks like. So
yeah, but you were saying that there's so much of it is the conditioning, like is the collective conditioning. A lot of it's ancestral, like just from our ancestral line, which is also another thing that, I come from a story where I was adopted at birth, and I come from a family that it wasn't the most peaceful living situation. Both of my parents, I think, did the best that they could, but it was just wasn't a fit at some point. And but outside of that, right, and I'm not to minimize my story at all, but I just always felt like, man, the way that I feel internally, the way that I respond to life, the way that I feel this deep sense of like rejection and abandonment and all of these things, like feels so much deeper than my life, right? Than just my life. The way that I responded to certain situations felt like more extreme than what my experience really was. Felt deeper. It felt more, just darker. And I don't know how much you know about astrology, but it all clicked for me when I got into astrology, and I realized that so my moon is Scorpio, which is already like a very intense emotional, that's the underworld sign, deep, deep emotions. But my moon is at 29 degrees, and that's the furthest degree until it moves into the next sign. And it's the degree of mastery and urgency, right? This lifetime I've lived multiple lifetimes working out this karmic cycle. And for me specifically, it's in the fourth house. So familial, ancestral, maternal wounding, right? And I was like, that makes sense, right? This is the lifetime that I get to master this deep wound. And so, yeah, it's felt really heavy. It's felt really dark. It's felt really, just a lot. And so getting to transmute this and feel through the pain of all of my ancestors has been powerful, but also hard.
Yeah. Yeah, our ancestors' behavior is in our DNA. And we carry over their experiences, whether it was running from the tiger or procreation. Yeah. Those are both survival instincts. And so I feel like a lot of times when we have an extreme response to something like abandonment, it's like, well, what would that have meant to our ancestors if they were abandoned? They didn't have society set up the way we do. So what I think about that is like, that makes a lot of sense that you have that self-awareness that this is probably just like an instinct, like a core wound of being human. And had this happened to the original human beings, the original Homo sapiens, they would have been way more screwed than me. So I think I'm just as screwed.
Yes. So much of it lives in our somatic body and does not make sense. It just doesn't, Yeah. Why do you think rejection feels so threatening to humans?
Well, I think of it kind of like the witch wound, like when we're afraid of coming out of the broom closet, whether we're an actual witch or something about us is just different. And we're just kind of weird. Like we have a difference of opinion or we have a difference of personality. I think we feel like there's going to be the witch trials. And I think that comes from our ancestors and what their life was like. And feeling like being an outcast is the end of the world because at one point it was.
Mhm.
Because at one point it was death. And I think for some people it is. In some parts of the world and maybe even in America, unfortunately. I think that's the truth of the world and how survival works for some people still. But I also think when we are fearing rejection, it it still feels like the tiger because that was one of the very first issues that humans ran into was running away from the tiger or defending the community against the tiger. And so I think the boogeyman is the the predator, the tiger in our subconscious mind. And it feels like we either have fight, flight, or freeze to the tiger.
Mhm.
And I think to add to that, with rejection therapy, I think doing something that goes against your conditioning, because conditioning is like an extension of what our ancestors did, because it grew off of them and it grew off of their offspring and their offspring and their offspring. I think it feels like we're doing something wrong. Like we've been conditioned to believe that we need to be good girls and good boys.
Yeah.
And I think that fear of being a rebel for me is scary at times, but I'm finding that I'm pushing through it and I'm overcoming it.
Yeah. I love that. We're kindred spirits for sure, because I have felt for a long time that I am here to ruffle some feathers. And it's not that I do it from a place of like, I'm going to like I'm going to push up against, but there is something about me that has always walked the road less traveled. And despite wanting to walk the road most traveled, because that feels more comfortable, there's something that has always been pushing me to the other road. And so I love that you said that. There's another connection I just made and something that you said around, you know, our ancestors back in the day were genuinely running from the tiger, meaning their fear meant they were going to die on the other side of the fear, right? I don't know how much you know about the 12 steps, but part of that process is writing inventory. And we write 3 different kinds of inventory. We write fear inventory, we write resentment inventory, and we write conduct inventory. And the common theme in fear inventory, as irrational as it is, you take whatever the fear is that you're experiencing, and when you take it all the way down to what the actual fear feels like, almost every time it's that, and then I will die, and then I will die alone, and then I will, you know what I mean? So I think it's what an interesting connection to make that is instinctual, as irrational or, as far removed as we are, that's still where our mind and body go. It's like, oh, I couldn't do that because then this will happen, and this will happen, this will happen, this will happen, and then I'll die alone, or I'll be alone forever or whatever. So cool distinction. How do you, oh, sorry, I kind of jumped in there. Did you want to?
Sure, I have one more thought there, if that's helpful.
Yeah, please.
So I was thinking about the coaching sort of tactic of, okay, so if you did blank, what would that say about you?
Mm.
And then it's like, well, I'm a bad person. It's like, well, are you really a bad person? No.
Yes.
Then you're good. You can do that thing. Or what's the worst thing that's going to happen if you put your services out there and no one buys? Well, there's going down the line to die. And then there's also kind of like the optimistic, like, well, if I really don't get my money needs met, I could end up homeless and I could end up going to a homeless shelter and getting fed for free. So the worst thing that will happen is I have shelter and food. And I know it's not a perfect situation like that. Like when you're actually in that situation, you have to fight to get to a shelter because it's so hard to get in. But I heard that from Alex Hermosi, and I was like, that is such an interesting way of looking at the fear of, well, what happens if like no one buys? It's like, well, worst case scenario, I'll be taken care of. And so I think I really love the 12 steps. I worked with them a little bit, not super intensively, but when you're talking about how it always ends with death, I think that's super interesting that we're able to reveal that as a consistent pattern. And also, I think being very intentional about like what's the highest timeline of like the worst thing that could happen is like I'll have food and shelter. Like people will take care of me. And that's kind of what I tell myself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. And the reality is when you actually look at, is this true? No, of course it's not true, right? That's why I love Byron Katie's work, because it always goes back to, is this absolutely true? And I can almost never say yes, if I'm honest with myself, right?
Yeah.
But again, back to our to our check-in before we started, there's this part of the human brain that always wants to project the future or figure it out to fully understand what's going to happen next so that I feel safe, right? When I look back on my life, almost nothing worked out the way that I thought it would. And I have remained abundant. I have always had my needs provided for. I have, the worst case scenario has never happened. I literally, I'd have to think about it, but like, I almost want to say that the worst case scenario has never actually happened,
Yeah. And I'd love to piggyback off of that the formula for having a calm response to something not going your way, or having like a chill, like, okay, like I trust everything's gonna work out response, is having something not go your way and then it working out anyways. Because when you have that experience, your body becomes your experiences, and it sees that even when my choice didn't happen, maybe God's choice or the universe or source's choice happened, and I ended up in a situation that worked. So maybe I don't always know what the right way is, but maybe the right way is always going to happen. And so it's a blessing, not just a curse, when we have those awful situations. And that's how I see the situation of my psychosis and homelessness, is I'm like, it worked out. Like people saved my life. And it taught me so many things, because when we lose things, we gain things too.
Absolutely. Yeah, such a beautiful point. And that was when you stop and look at the reality, right, of what I hoped and planned to happen versus what actually happened. I always see grace in it. Most of the time it's in hindsight, right? I don't usually see it in the moment. I usually see it as unfair, unjust, not always, but a lot of times, right? Why is this happening? But in hindsight, I see God's grace all over it, right? And how it couldn't have been more perfect working out that way. I actually had that experience our first weekend at Bridge, where there were a lot of circumstances. I don't need to get into the nitty-gritty details, but there kept being these situations cropping up, right? And I was just like, why is this fucking happening? Like, this is not going my way. Like, one of the days I showed up, I got stuck in the marathon traffic and I was 40 minutes late, and I had already felt like I had erased myself the day before in this experience, and was feeling really disappointed about a lot of things, and was also disappointed in my personal life about this, situation that wasn't going my way. And it was just like all of the pity around that, right? And I remember getting stuck in the car, and it was like all of these, like trying to figure out how to get to the hotel. And I had a total meltdown collapse where I was just like, God, where are you? Right? It's like always in those moments of sheer panic and sheer just like fear and collapse. The mind often gravitates towards that, right? Where are you? And then I get to the other side and Sunday night, because this happened Sunday morning, Sunday night, I get home after a long day and I'm literally crying in tears because I'm just like, God, thank you. Like everything needed to happen exactly the way that it did to bring up in me what I needed to see, you know? And
Makes sense.
yeah, and that's how I look at life now. It's like, what are you here to in that moment, I wasn't excited to see what he was showing me or divine mother, father, or whatever you want to call it. But in hindsight, and I was pretty quickly able to get there to see the grace in all of that, To me, that felt like God was saying, honey, I love you so much and I know how capable you are. So I'm, bringing all of this to the surface because this is stuff you need to see so that you can step into this new chapter, so that you can see that you're capable, so that you can learn to trust me, right? And so that there's just so much power and beauty in that I'm glad things don't go my way. I'm glad that because I don't know if you've ever seen the illustration of the teddy bear behind the back, but God's got this massive teddy bear behind his back. And, the little human's got this tiny teddy bear and he's like tugging it away and he doesn't want God to take the tiny teddy bear. And he's like, oh my God, would you just let go? I've got something way better, So.
Yeah. Yeah, I was getting shivers as you were talking. And I'd also like to piggyback. It's also, what are my emotions trying to teach me? Like, especially anger. Like, what is this sacred emotion that causes me to feel strong? Because I think that's one of the main benefits of anger is it causes us to feel like we're mighty and we can do powerful things and we should do powerful things, hopefully for the good. But, I think when I feel negative emotions, I'm like, okay, like this is sacred. And what are the benefits of this? And how am I going to utilize this so I can have more positive emotions? Because I don't want to feel good all the time. That's spiritual bypassing. And that's something that I'm learning too, is like, it really is okay to let myself feel that anger because I want to be a good girl and I want to make sure everyone feels safe around me. And I'm learning that even just 90 seconds of just letting it be and being in control of it, but also feeling it is a wonderful teacher in and of itself, a wonderful spiritual teacher.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that you bring up spiritual bypass because I think we have very similar wounds. We have, or I say wounds lightly, but we have similar ways in which we have shown up in life, right? Or allowed life to kind of take us under at moments. And, mine has always been the good girl. Be the good girl. Don't stay in line. Don't get messy. Don't let them see you slip, all in an effort to make sure that I remain loved, right? And valued and appreciated. And so there was so much, you're so right, because underneath the surface of my initial feeling is me suppressing anger a lot of the time, right? And I want to say this because I think people need to understand that the suppression of emotions creates chronic illness. It creates it's a breed for cancer. It's a breed for autoimmune disease. That is the root of a lot of our illness and hormone issues. It's internalized emotions that are just there to be felt. Michael Singer talks, all the great teachers talk about that when you see an animal in the wild, whether it's two birds fighting or, two squirrels or two lions, right? they get pissed. One of them gets pissed and they go at it for a minute, right? And they fully express whatever's there for them. And then they just shake it off and they move on, you know? And we don't do that as humans. I'll speak for myself. I've been so afraid of my anger at moments because of the way that it was modeled to me as a kid. Felt really scary. I was like, no way. I can't let myself feel anger because it will look like that. And I can't, no, that scares me. But what I'm learning is that there was an exercise we did where we got to embody the opposite of our, predominant, I forget what they called it, like safety strategy, right? Which is, I think I'm labeling that correctly, but the good girl. What was the opposite of the good girl for me? It was an angry, messy bitch. And in this exercise, I remember, I'm trying not to give too much away, but I remember like the ask was to like fully embody the extreme opposite, right? And this was so telling because that shit felt so good. It felt so good to be angry and to be messy and to be just to fully express that. Like there was excitement in my body that was like, oh, thank you, God, she's being angry. Thank you, God, she's allowing herself to like be messy and express. And that was just really eye-opening for me. Was like, you're putting so much energy and effort into hiding this part, not expressing this part, but really that part is dying to be expressed and it's safe to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. What I was thinking about was for my good girl persona, it's very much like lean into the shy, sweet facade. Not that shy is an entire facade. I think I am, or sweet is an entire facade. I think I am sweet. I think more the shy is a facade because I have so much to say. And, leaning into this idea of looking good and feeling pretty instead of being like, oh, I'm sorry. I don't belong here. It's like, no, I look good. Like, I look hot. Yeah, and I always look hot. And I'm here to show everyone how hot I am.
Fuck yeah.
And like breaking through the glass ceiling of this idea that I have to make everyone else feel comfortable and safe and like I'm not, like I don't have anything going for myself.
Yes.
Like the only thing I have going for myself is the fact that I'm selfless.
Yeah.
And that was something that I've been going off of for a while, is like the only thing I can have going for myself is that I'm selfless. And every other trait that I have going for myself has to be going towards the selflessness.
Yes.
And whether it's intelligence or warmth or whatever it was. And so literally just something as vain as just like, I look good is like, oh, hell yeah. Like, I'm not the good girl right now.
Yes. Because what is the opposite? What is doing the opposite of how we really feel teach people? What, it's not okay and safe there's not enough space for them to be who they are, right? Like, no, it's not okay for you to express yourself fully. This is what it means to be fill in the blank. When really, by us standing in that beautiful, expansive power and truth of, I am the shit. And not from a cocky place, but from a like, I am because I'm breathing. I am because I'm God's creation. I am because I am,
Yes.
And there doesn't need to be a second part that explains why or justifies why I feel that way. I get to take that space up. And so that's definitely something that I'm holding close to my chest going forward, because it gives other people permission to do the same, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, opposite action is extremely effective in breaking through, because when we're working so hard to do the same thing over and over again, sometimes the obvious thing gives us the result that we want after an extraordinary amount of attempts. And sometimes it's doing the thing that is opposite of what we want to do. And for instance, when I posted, as I was telling you, Danielle, on Facebook that I was hosting this gathering and charging for it, I didn't try and be the selfless person and be like, yeah, I'm doing this just for everyone else. And I'm going through all the trouble of this for absolutely, absolutely no money. And I'm just going to give it all away. I was like, no, some of it does go to me. And being like, I'm worthy of that and I am allowed to receive was powerful instead of feeling like, you know, these people are right. I should just give up. I should just make myself small and shy and sweet and be a good girl. So I think opposite action is extraordinarily powerful for getting you what you want.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's something that I have. There's this stage character that I've had too. I think similar to what you're saying is, you know, being this like selfless person, this spiritual gal, this person who's, you know, divinely connected, like certainly charge people. And it's like, we have it backwards. We have it so backwards. Like money is energy, right? And so by putting my energy into this whole thing, setting it up for community, for experience, all this stuff, like, is crazy to believe that I would do it for free. Literally insane, you know? But we're taught the opposite, you know? Like this chapter of my life is about throwing away every single old idea that still lingers, or at least questioning it, right? Is this mine? Where is this coming from? So many of us like won't even question it, right? Myself included, where I have operated from a belief system for so long and have not even stopped to question where that actually comes from. Is that true for me, right? Is this my belief? So I love that. I love that you're charging for this experience. And, you know, I know that you're going to be stepping into a chapter of your life where that is easy, right? Charging what you deserve and asking is going to be easy, you know? So good for you for stepping into that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So Shel, what does this next chapter of your life look like? What is it? What version of yourself are you stepping into and what do you want to do?
Yeah. So the thing that comes most to mind is whenever someone asks me, like, why do you want to be a millionaire? Like, what's even the point of that? Why does it matter? Why would you even need that much money? I'm always like, philanthropy, philanthropy, philanthropy. And what I realized last night was, yes, and it's not just philanthropy. It's I love myself. And that lights my soul on fire. The goal of it is so fun to me. Like adding value and receiving value just feels fun. And it feels like I am worthy of that. And I am contributing to others because it's showing up in the energy I'm getting back, like you're saying. And as I realized that, I was like, Alex Hermosi says you don't have to be like, you don't have to hurt yourself to be helpful to others. You can give back and have it feel good. And what I realized last night when I was helping someone with a kind of like case manager situation, I tend to take that on myself where I'm like, hey, here's all these resources. Here's how to find this. Like, it felt so rewarding this time. And I was like, whoa, I could keep doing this. Like, I could be people's go-to in certain situations where I can tell the person is wanting to fight for their situation because I'm not going to make someone a victim and I'm not going to keep them there and I'm not going to encourage that. But where someone wants to get out of their situation and be like, well, I walked the path, here you go. Like, here are all the steps I took, here are all the steps I know of that will get you unstuck and get you out of your situation. And so I think really aligning with the kind acts that not just help others but feel rewarding. And part of that is the services I offer. All the services I offer are rewarding for me. But I think also doing things just to give back because it makes me feel like, what? Like I could cry right now. Like I remember when that was me. And I really made an impact because some things I feel like I could do and I could be like, okay, that was exhausting. But I'm in happy mode, happy money mode, not just making money to make money, but making money while being happy, while giving freely, while being in my highest timeline, in my highest self, and then also happy, happy free giving, where I'm not feeling like it's taking from me, where it feels like it's giving back to me just by the person saying thank you.
Mm.
And so that's really the next season of my life is those two things together.
It's so beautiful, powerful. I heard this teacher one time say, if we're extensions of source, right? If we're like these micro extensions of source energy, God, whatever you want to call it, do we really believe that God would come down in human form and be like, I'm not pretty enough. I need to be humble and make no money. No, God would come down, shoulders back, head up, like, I am God. I am God. That is mine. That is mine. You can have this. Here you go. Like, leading from the heart, but like totally deserving, totally owning everything that is his birthright, you know? So I think about that often because, I just, and this is a conversation for another day, but I do think that women are starting to rise from this massive suppression and repression that we have gone through collectively for many, many, many thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Where, and it's cool to see men saying this, where it's like, women are the real leaders, right? Women are the ones who, like, so many men are starting to realize, like, we want women to lead us,
Mm-hmm.
And I believe in my heart that that's always how it was supposed to be. And so stepping into this leadership with powerful women like you that lead from the heart, I feel so honored to be on the path with people like you, and who believe in themselves and their mission, and really, really have a desire to give back and to and show other people that they are just as worthy and deserving of that too. So I love what you're doing. I would love for you to touch on Squirrel Friends ATX, and then let us know where we can find you and your services. And I want to hold some space for that.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Danielle. And I deeply appreciate your leadership as well from the heart. And School Friends ATX is a women's empowerment group. And we have been meeting for the past 3 years. I am the president. My friend Rachel Lucky is the founder. And so we meet every Wednesday at 6:30 and we rally with each other as sisters. And we are in the spirit of helping one another through growing the mind, body, and spirit, whether we're taking a Reiki class or we're doing adult recess or a boxing class, or we are working on a book club, or we're just going for a hot squirrel walk. And if you're wondering why Squirrel Friends, it sounds like girlfriends. It's a silly name and it sticks. we, we add squirrel to everything that would have girl. And one of my ideas for an event on a Wednesday is cover squirrels, like cover girls, and doing like a makeup potluck. So we're always open to ideas and community-led activities. And so it is an affordable community, and it is $65 a month for 5 events a month. And you can do drop-in classes. There's a little bit more for that per class, but it is totally up to you and what makes sense for you. We have our relaunch event on April 15th, and that is going to be a summer camp themed get together. And so we're going to give a preview of the mind, body, and spirit activities that we like to do. And it is going to be a throwback to childhood. And that earthy, hippie, granola kind of girl is what we are looking to attract. We are all about laughs and just pure honesty. We say the most honest things to each other, and we help each other find our lifelong friends. So that is for friends. We have had 1,000 women come through us, and we are growing ever more. So to tell you a little bit more about where you can find me, so if you would like to learn more about my Reiki sessions and psychic readings, you can go to reikihealingbyshel.com, and that's REIKIBY, no, REIKIHEALHEALYSHEL1L.com. And then you want to connect with me in general, you can go to my Instagram, which is Shel Dockser Official. That's SHELDOCKSER Official. And I have my stand store there. If you would like to set up mentorship sessions, I have a monthly one-on-one container for that. And yeah.
Beautiful. And I will make sure and link all those below for when your episode releases. And yeah, you are just doing amazing things, and we're going to stay in close touch through our path, on our paths going forward in this next year. But it is an honor to share space with you as always. Thank you for just being such a stand-up human being. We need women to stand. We need women to use their voice. We need women standing in their power. And I see you, and I honor you as a woman and as a human being. Thank you for your time today. And yeah, I look forward to more experiences with you, Shel.
I look forward to the same with you, Danielle. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Until next time.
May the cord that binds us to one another and to Source remind you that you are never alone, always guided, and always home.